Welcome, Cannabis Friends. Hope you are doing awesome. My name is Al Morenton, host of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds podcast. We have an amazing guest interview today with a gentleman that is doing some significant work in cannabis, psychedelics, and wellness, Mr. Gary Roberts. Gary is an 18-year career firefighter pioneering treatment for addiction, mental health, PTSD, and traumatic brain injury through cannabis, psychedelics, movement, and nutrition. With over 30 years of experience in the fitness industry, Gary focuses on athlete coaching, physical recovery programs, and mental training for athletic performance. He owns a leading edge CBD company, Pure Body Zen, founded to enable athletes, EMTs, firefighters, police, and military personnel to access safe and effective THC free products. As the host of the Good Dudes Grow podcast, Gary connects with physicians, professional athletes, politicians, and entrepreneurs in the world of hemp, cannabis, and psychedelics on the future of a new medical revolution. He is the chair of Fort Lauderdale's new Cannabis Health and Wellness Committee, advocating changes in the city's THC testing policies for firefighters and police officers. As a business owner, he is a visionary leader who is fiscally minded, ecological, collaborative, and constantly looking for win win solutions. His passion and relentless pursuit are unmatched. Welcome to the show, Gary.
Hey,
Right
thanks for
on.
having me, Al. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I know you have a lot going on, some extremely significant reasons why behind it as well. So can you take us back to the beginning of like what set you on your path?
Sure. It started about 3 years. Actually, this is a tough week because it actually started exactly to this date 3 years ago. 3 years ago, my daughter was in a car accident. She became addicted to opiate medications. So during her time with opiates, trying to relieve pain, she came to us and said there had to be a different something different she could have done to actually relieve it, and that's where we started looking into the medical cannabis and CBD industry. And back then, it still was illegal in the state of Florida, so it was extremely difficult to try and find anything or figure anything out. So we started looking into different ways that we can actually create our own compounds or partner up or collaborate with the farms that are actually legalized out in California, Colorado, or something. But like I said, it was illegal. So when we ordered some stuff to actually test it out, it came out in little funny little packages. It's because nobody wanted to know what it was back then. They would send like little perfume bottles and stuff just to figure it out. And so I tested it on myself, basically tested it. And being in the fitness industry like you are, sometimes we if it tastes bad it's good for you, kind of thing. Well, these products tasted real bad and they didn't do anything. So I wasn't 100% sure that the CBD route was actually the perfect route for my daughter. But you know what, we kept trying different things, kept trying different companies, kept trying different farms. And unfortunately, as we found a farm and began getting a product that actually worked for myself, she ended up having an overdose and passing away exactly on this date back 3 years ago.
Oh
So
wow.
it's a tough week for us, but that set me down my journey of one, creating a safe product, because being still a firefighter, I still can't use THC. I'm still tested, and therefore I needed to find a way to get 100% THC free products, but still products that actually worked or managed to help with firefighters sleep and pain and everything else. So that's how I started my path down that road. And I'm going to tell you a quick story. Is the reason why I got involved with trying to create or change the system for firefighters was I was giving my firefighters this isolate. Back then it was isolates before they found all the terpenes and other compounds and everything else. And what ended up happening, several firefighters came up to me and says, "Hey, listen, I've been having some bad thoughts. I've been angry at my kids. I'm getting divorced. I don't know what's going on. These reoccurring dreams keep happening. But while I was taking your product, uh, those reoccurring dreams weren't consistent anymore. They were far and few between. I started being a little more happier. I started being calmer. I started sleeping better. So when I started hearing that, I realized that there's an opportunity to help firefighters with mental health, especially since we're the type A personality people. We're not going to just tell somebody our feelings. that doesn't happen. It's, we're trained not to. We're trained while everybody else is panicking and running around with their heads cut off. We're trained to stay calm and, just focus on what we got to do. And that unfortunately leads into our personal lives as well. So it was really difficult. So that led me down the path of helping my fellow firefighters on that aspect of mental health.
Awesome, awesome. And so sorry to hear about your daughter. And
Thanks.
uh, was there something that went on with your father as well?
Yeah, my daughter passed away, like I said, in January, and then 3 months later, I got a call from my mom. My dad passed away. Supposedly he passed away in his sleep. But when I went down to visit my mom and help her with the burial and the cremation and everything else, we ended up finding out a stack of paperwork. My dad was a printer, so he could like print stuff.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, he couldn't print any money, but he could print stuff that was pretty cool. But he was printing his own prescription medication, prescription forms, and he was actually going to get his own pain meds from his doctor out and back in Canada, and he was writing his own prescriptions. So, we assume that that's probably what happened. He probably took too much and then ended up, passing away when he went to sleep. My mom was not aware of it, anything else. So I had my daughter and my father both pass away from opiate overdoses within a 3 month period.
Oh, so so that set you on fire for what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, that was the last straw. Basically, that was like, okay, something needs to change. I investigated different options here in South Florida about how we can change the recovery and rehab industry, and it was just going to be a big battle. So we were looked at different options, and we spent about a year figuring out how we can do stuff, and that's where we came across, different options like Costa Rica that we're building right now.
So yeah, so that's something we want to talk about. One quick question I have is with the firefighters and even with the police, and EMTs, is there a lot of drug addiction or suicide or anything like that prominent in those fields?
There's a lot of suicide and definitely a lot of addiction with alcohol
Alcohol.
and sleep meds and pain meds because we don't get much sleep, especially us in Florida and in Fort Lauderdale. We're like one of the top 10 busiest cities in the nation. We can run anywhere between 5 to 15 calls a day every shift, and
Wow.
a lot of those are either overdoses themselves or car accidents. So the stuff we see is pretty dramatical. And in the old days, everybody used to go, well, yeah, let's go have a drink, and we'll forget about it. And then one drink leads to constant drinking, and then they can't sleep, and then you start getting medication. So it's known for firefighters and police officers to actually have these type of addictions.
Cool. So that's awesome that you're helping them, with something that's more natural. That's very cool. So tell us a little about what you have going on and what led you to Costa Rica.
Well, one of the things we while we were going down the mental health path and everything else, we started collaborating with a bunch of people. So, like you said, my podcast, Good Dudes Grow, was a way to actually open the door for veterans and firefighters to see what other people were doing, like professional athletes and doctors and everything else. So that opened the door to
Awesome.
several physicians who we talked back and forth, and we basically thought, how can we fix the issues we're having in the United States and Canada and the UK, and make it accessible for everybody to get either treatments for cannabis, psychedelics, and not wait till end of life. And we realized we started with the patient. We went, so okay, so first would be the patients. Let's talk to the patients, see what they say. Let's try and educate them. And then what ends up happening most of the time, I'm pretty sure you get this, and when you talk to the patients with cannabis, basically is, oh, let me go speak to my doctor. And so, most of the doctors, don't know much, or don't know, say, don't take it, or they're unsure, or they've been promoting some product that some salesman Kim says it works, but they're really unsure how it works. So we says, okay, great. So the patients want to use it, but they can't get the information from their doctors. So how do we get the doctors on board? And we says, well, we need to get to the doctors associations, because doctors won't do anything unless their associations say, give them a thumbs up and saying, hey, you might want to look into this stuff, because every doctor or physician, I'm pretty sure in Canada here, they think that their protocols or their set standards are the gift to curing whatever you go and see them with. There's nothing that can change it. Been doing this for 50 years. This is the only way. I've done it for 30 years. You're not going to tell me anything different. Well, we said, okay, well, we need to go to the associations. But how do you get to the associations? The only way the associations listen to you is through clinical trials. So he says, okay, we have three avenues we need to fix: the patients, the physicians, and clinical trials. Let's see how we can do that in the United States. And we searched and redid some research, and it was like hundreds of millions of dollars to try and get proper clinical research and everything else. So what that does basically is creates a tremendous cost to the end user. If it costs me 100 or 500 million dollars to show that a plant that costs $2 or $3 does something, well, what do you think that plant's going to cost that patient at the end after all those clinical trials? That plant's going to be a $50,000 plant by the time we're done, just to show that what we all know it actually works. So he says there's got to be a better way, and that's where we found Costa Rica. Costa Rica at the time was just going through their cannabis legislation. They were just signing their medical cannabis bill. We started talking with the congresswoman that was writing the bill. We started telling her what we were doing. She invited us down. We did a big conference with them. We met with the minister of tourism. We met with one of the ex-house speakers, and we told her we're doing this. Says, yeah, we'd be interested. Let's find a way to get this down here, because Costa Rica is basically, their medical standards is at the same standards as Health Canada. So it's the same level. A lot of people travel to Costa Rica for medical tourism. They get their facials done, plastic surgery done, dentistry work done, orthopedics done. It's known for those type of medical procedures, and it's basically a third of the cost. It's a 30 or 70% discount. And you still get an awesome doctor that helps you out. So he says, okay, let's look into the clinical trial stuff. And we found out that, it would be more cost effective to actually do this in Latin America and create this. And the best part about it is, with the ability, our partners in Canada, we were able to actually produce the products that are needed to do the research. And with the treaty with Canada, we can actually import and export quite easily. So we said, okay, let's start building that. And that's basically what we built. We're in the process of building. We're still in our initial round of funding right now to actually start to put the shovel in the ground. But it's basically a wellness facility.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. That sounds like a lot of hard work too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of, being, I tell you, so I'm in Florida, the United States. I'm a Canadian. I'm in Florida with an American company, have partners in Canada, and I'm trying to open something in Costa Rica. So understanding the legalities, law, international finance, international accounting, it was a whole process for me, but we got it done. We have some great partners, some great partnerships. The cool thing about our facility, it's a real time data driven facility. As soon as you put your foot onto the facility, we start collecting data on everything with our partners. So from the beds you sleep on, to the mats you use for yoga, to the rooms that you're actually in for your treatments. So everything is actually going to be quantified. We're going to show how the products work, proper dosing, safety procedures, and how efficacy and I keep forgetting this word. It's the hardest word. I always how you use it. I guess the delivery mode of delivery. That's what I always forget that one. That's the
Right, right on. That's awesome. And you're gonna do like nutrition and things like that as well.
Yeah, yeah. One of the cool parts is we're gonna have a full. It's on all. It's basically, it's kind of like a sandals resort,
Mm-hmm.
but underneath the medical oversight to do specialized treatment for mental illness and clinical trials. So the restaurant we created is going to be a full cannabis infused, hemp infused restaurant. We're talking to a couple of really renowned Michelin star chefs that are looking to come down for us and create that for us. So we're really excited. It's going to be one of the only one of a kind facilities in Latin America.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, and it's beautiful because there's like fresh produce everywhere, right? My friend opened up over a decade ago, but he opened up a like a green juice kind of a place in Costa Rica, and it was like almost like in the jungle, like just wherever he was. He didn't need any customers. He just opened up this place and people would actually vacation there. and do that. My friend and has a place in Hawaii right now, Dr. Robert Kassar, that has not the clinical stuff that you're talking about, but like the wellness kind of a thing. He built a huge like multi-bedroom facility, and he has a little place, and he has like farm animals, and it overlooks the water, and they do yoga in the morning, and the green juices, and chefs making food, and it's all of these things they do like cleanses and detoxification and all of these kinds of things. But he's not into the CBD or cannabis. Like he hasn't gotten that because he's been brainwashed. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the psychedelics. Like how'd you get into that?
Oh, that was just doing research. I just started noticing that the trend was coming up. Basically, when COVID hit, we were trying to figure out what we were going to do with our CBD company. COVID hit, everybody started panicking. Everything started slowing down. There was more mental health issues coming out, and then I ended up falling on the article from MAPS showing that they're fast tracking MDMA on their first trial for PTSD, where they said they weren't treating PSD, but they were actually 75% of the people that went through their clinical trials were actually cured from being diagnosed as a PTSD patient. And that just kind of caught my eye. And so I dove into the idea of like, well, let's see what else is going on. And I noticed that, this may be a faster track than cannabis is going to go through just for the purposes of they're easier to study compounds. They're easier to duplicate compounds than just the plant. So you're able to actually duplicate those compounds. But the research seems people are more interested in the research, and it's been done way in the past. So all these research that are coming out for psychedelics, for depression, alcoholism, addiction, schizophrenia, and stuff like that were actually done back in the 50s and everything else. They were using it quite successfully back then, and then unfortunately cannabis came in, and then the big the big war on drugs started, and they canceled
Mm-hmm.
everything. Going making everything scarce, making everything is bad for you. You're going to use psychedelics, could jump off a bridge or something, and completely stopped it. And the weird thing about it is when they stopped it, they also stopped the research. So it had to 20 years later, 30 years later, 40 years later, it restarted, and only the research had to restart again. But they actually had to build the equipment to do the research because everything was stopped. So that really caught my mind. Like, this is interesting. This is quite. I'm quite enthusiastic if we can actually cure PTSD and everything else. And again, like I said at the beginning of the show, my whole really goal is I want to create nutraceuticals or medications that we can use for active military personnel, active firefighters, active police officers, because I don't want these individuals to wait till we get to use cannabis or psychedelics as a last resort. I don't think that's fair of letting 30 years of building up of seeing terrible things saying, okay, well, now you get an access to a magic mushroom or a cannabis. It makes no sense when there's actually proven data that it could be more beneficial if they could use it during their career. So that was the biggest thing that really caught my eye and why I decided to do this whole thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so awesome that you have that as the goal, and that part of not having to wait. Because I've been in the industry forever, and um, a lot of who I was dealing with, especially when I was in California, was military and police and CHP a lot, and and all of them, like I would get to where they were like lieutenants and captains, and they were like retired. They had just retired, and that was their retirement gift, that they could actually start taking this stuff now, right? Like, and they were all for it. They were the biggest proponents of it, and there was like almost like a retirement crew that but the people that are in it that are actually helping people right now can't take it. They have to help everybody else, but they can't help themselves with something that's available, that's natural.
Ex- Yeah, exactly. And see, every year we get something called a life scan. Basically, it's a scan of our body. It looks for lumps, it looks for cancer, scans all your organs and everything else, looking for this stuff. Because what they're trying to do is stop the cost of what cancer is later on down the road when we, after we retire. Well, that's great. We do everything from the shoulders down, but what about the shoulders up? So I wanted to create a center that we can actually have veterans, firefighters, and first responders go to and get like a yearly dose of, okay, let's get all the bad stuff out. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's give you a path on how you can manage it throughout the rest of your career and every year. And then you can come back and continuously do it without any ill effects to their job or their careers. And that was the biggest thing because, like I said, it's and like you said, it's absolutely no fair that we have to go 30 years, seeing death and mayhem just so that afterwards we can take a gummy or something. It's just it blows my mind, especially now that there are studies. But again, I understand it now that I've done a lot of research. There has to be some sort of medically backed research to allow these organizations to feel comfortable. And that was one of the biggest battles I was having with my department, trying to actually get us access to just the federally legal hemp products.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing the red tape, and even with the best of intentions, how you could be bogged down. It's interesting. Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Well, you know what? The biggest thing is that if anybody wants to, like I said, we're in our initial funding process. And if you go to our website for PIR, promisesinnovativerecovery.com, we have a donation page. We have a 501(c) that if you want to actually make a donation, tax deductible donation to help open this facility for veterans and everything else, you can do that. Our goal is not our goal is to build Costa Rica as a cookie cutter template. So as the United States begins to roll out their legalization and decriminalization of these compounds and allow them for medical use, to have the ability to show or the ability to have all that set up when people open up. Because we all know the wellness centers are going to places that are actually going to be doing these treatments. Right now there's clinical trials being done in hospitals, and then university hospitals. But again, I tell everybody else that's great, but that's not the place you want to be. It's basically you're in an asylum. It makes you feel like you're in an asylum. It's more of a hostile setting than actually a comfortable setting where you'll be on vacation. It's easier to let go. It's easier to understand what's happening. You're not in a white room with walls, and it's so. I believe that as we roll out the decriminalization and legalization of these compounds, these wellness centers, like your friends in Hawaii and everything, are going to be the at the forefront of providing these medications, and we want to be at the forefront of providing these safety protocols for them.
That's awesome. So I love that because you're providing like that awesome service, and a new template or a design for what allopathic medicine should be basically, and then but you're also like bringing down the veil, that surrounding cannabis and CBD too, because there's so many people that have one or the other. They're all cannabis and CBD, or they're all wellness, but they don't have that CBD and cannabis part, and it's the biggest missing link, don't you think? Like,
It is. You know what
like
it is? Our facility won't only be tailor made to cannabis and psychedelics. That's what I tell everybody else. So we're not just going to be a wellness center that provides psychedelic or cannabis treatments. Our wellness center also we're looking at having VR treatments for people who don't want to use psychedelics or cannabis, or NLP treatments, music therapy, movement therapy. So we're going to have all of it. And the reason why we thought about that is because as a firefighter, the biggest thing is the support system. And when you go into our careers, like I says, we shut down and don't talk about it with our spouses and everything. And that's why divorces are high. But imagine you having PTSD and your mentality's changing, and your wife doesn't understand who you are. Then you go out and do a psychedelic treatment and come back a completely different person again. Now the wife's going, now who you are, who are you? I don't understand it. So we created programs that when the spouses come or the family members come, they can go through a non-trippy type scenario where they can understand what the patient's going through at the same time without having to do the psychedelics or the cannabis. So we wanted to create an environment where the whole family can come, so that when they leave the facility, the support system's still there.
That's awesome. So it's like the whole of the family inside of a holistic center in a holistic setting in paradise.
Correct, correct. That's what we call our. We don't call our people who come visit patients. We call them community members, because it's going to be a community. We're going to keep building upon it. We're going to have them return. We're going to build upon the community to help teach everything, and then spread the joy and love as we go through it.
That's awesome. All right. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Gary. We'll be sure to put all the information on how they can contact you and possibly become like a part of your, of your path down in the show notes. And let's see. That concludes this episode of Cannabis Friends and 420 Buds podcast. Thank you for listening and have a beautiful day. Peace.